Assalamu alaikum and greetings. My name is Shwa and I am the host and founder of a podcast called Light Up with Shwa. It's a weekly podcast on conscious living and parenting. I have a very special guest today and I am really honored and privileged to have him online on Skype with me. Let's begin. Assalamu alaikum ji.
Walaikum assalam.
Would you like to introduce yourself and your full name and what do you do?
My name is Shehzad Saleem, and I am basically a researcher relating to theology and conscious living, as you said. As far as my work is concerned, is more concentrated on the sources of Islam, especially the Qur'an and its history. I have done a PhD on the history of the Quran, some postdoctoral work on that topic, and I do intend to publish my work, inshallah, later this year. As far as parenting is concerned and conscious living is concerned, I generally call this subject as life coaching, as you might know. It's a broader subject. It's the same name, basically, of the same content, but it touches upon various parts of our lives and is meant to give general and broad guidance to our youth in life, especially the emotional part, how they can tackle the various vicissitudes of life, like, for example, what to do when they are sad, what to do when they are happy, how to react in various circumstances. So it's basically youth counseling and life coaching and parental advice taken in a package.
With that thought, hopefully then we should maybe tease our audience that you might be coming to Boston area to do some sessions and workshops.
I do intend to. Let's see.
Yes. Okay. So hopefully we'll keep our audience updated, and I hope they will join us when you are here. All right. So let's begin with how would you define or what is parenting in your viewpoint, with your experience, what it is?
Mm-hmm. Well, parenting is the name of an attitude in which parents, of course, need to nurture and nourish their children. And as the term generally applies, it's a bunch of attitudes, or I would say a amalgam of attitudes, which parents generally adopt in order to rear their children. And at times they do it naturally, as if it comes to them naturally. But I think that in this world of today, it's a skill and it's an art that parents must learn. And the best part to learn is actually when they are growing up. They've not yet become parents. Like, for example, when they are studying in a university or a college in the later part of their degree courses, something regarding parenting must be introduced at a formal level so that they can get instruction before they enter parenthood. So in my experience, what often happens is that the time for parenting generally comes when parents have actually lost charge of their children, or the children have gone away from them and they suddenly realize that they've done something wrong. So it's generally too late. And I think that gaining experience from various episodes, it will be well in line that all of us pay heed to this very important subject, because in my humble personal view, the biggest investment which parents can make in this world is their children. And there's no bigger an investment than their children. And if they make a mess out of it, then they should realize what a big loss they have actually suffered. And then what happens is that generally there is an awakening in the later part of their lives, and then they try to be better grandparents because they could never be good parents. So sometimes I find parents becoming better grandparents because they realize that they did something wrong and they would like to make amends. But having said that, as I said, the best part or the right age for parenting is when parenthood is still a long way to go and you are still yourself maybe a teenager or a young adult, and that would be the right time, I would say.
But do you think that people do admit that they did mistakes as a parent?
Well, I have been conducting workshops and sessions all over the world, and I do think that there are two types of parents. There are some parents who do realize and confess, and they do think that something has been wrong. And there are others who, because of their own, I would be slightly sorry to say that, because of their own self-righteousness, they still think that they are doing the right thing. And they don't realize that whatever they are doing is actually pushing their children away from them. And what they generally think is the children are on the wrong side. So such parents often think that they are right and the children have a wrong attitude. And they are basically remnants of our Desi culture, especially the Eastern culture, because in that culture, as you would be knowing, parents have virtually dictatorial authority on their children. And hence, they would still like to exercise this authority. And because they themselves faced the same authority when they were growing up, so what they do is that they just replicate the whole procedure, and this goes on in circles, and it has
till
actually,
you become conscious.
Either you become conscious, and I've seen, unfortunately, parents who never become conscious. So that does take its toll as well.
That's true.
So my biggest, I would say, dream was that the greatest force that we can become as a global family, I'm talking about a global family, is that if the next generation, which is going to take our place, is empowered and is also given the proper guidelines of how they can become individuals who can really contribute to the society that they live in. They are not reactionary, they are not angry individuals. As I generally see children growing up, they have a lot of anger in them. And in spite of being very supremely talented, this anger gets the better of them and makes them lose a lot of good habits and abilities, and they go waste. So it's like a passion that if this talent is there in raw form, and the thing is that it is just because of mishandling that talent actually goes waste. So if something can be done to harness that talent, to make them better individuals in life, to make them contributing individuals in life, to make them thankful individuals in life, and hence contribute to this global phenomena and this global family, so that we can all work as a global family for the betterment of this planet Earth, and live with peace and with comfort and with mutual harmony. So that's what actually always pushed me on. And I don't know where this dream might take me, because I don't have I have never viewed the destination as something which will be the end of my work, because I think this is such an all-embracing and such an extensive thing that I just have to keep on doing it, and perhaps even find a team with whom I can do it in a more comprehensive way. So the task is just to forget about what results or what the destination is, and the actual thing is to expend as much effort as is possible to realize this goal.
This will take me to your parents first now, before I get into other questions. How was your experience from your parents? And has that made you into what you are, or is that a reaction to what that you are?
So actually, I lost my father when I was just 14 years old. And I had a very good friendship with my father and a very, very good relationship. Unfortunately, it was a very short one. And right after that, actually, my mother assumed this role of this double role of this dual role of father and mother. And I have two younger sisters, and so she took care of us as generally people in such age do. She was very, very, she sacrificed a lot, and she actually lived. It was like living for her children.
She must be young then.
She was less than 40.
Oh, that
39.
Is young.
Yeah, she was very young, and so she did a lot for us and made us realize that life is not all about not all about material things. It's about relationships. It's about love. It's about affection. It's about this bond that comes into being between human beings. And that's what we learned from her. And mashallah, she's still alive, and I live with her. She lives with me.
That's very nice.
She has traveled with me all the way here to the US. And
I think I should interview her sometime then.
So she herself is a missionary person. After my father's death, she did a double master's in two subjects that she always wanted to do because of her early marriage. She couldn't do, and then she is part of a welfare project in Pakistan, Lahore, since the last 25 years, in which they actually educate rural girls and women. They vocationally train them, and they empower them so that they can stand up on their feet and do work. So she's been with them, and ever since she's come here, it's almost a month now, she's itching to do something here as well. And she would like to do something as long as she's here. Any volunteering activity. So basically, I call her, she's a woman with a mission.
MashaAllah. Would you like to share her organization that she works for or does work with?
Yeah. So Academy Female Community Workers.
Okay.
So basically, she trains community workers, such that they are able to live in the society proudly, and they are able to support themselves. Because, as you would be knowing, the husband situation in Pakistan and in many parts of the world is not that pleasing. They either end up divorcing their wives, or they end up doing things which actually cause their wives to recoil, and just to work from their own shells and to support themselves. So it's like empowering women. And plus this question of lack of female education in Pakistan, in which the literacy rate overall is low, but particularly in females, it's even much lower. So it's not easy to actually deal with such a lot, especially because their own parents are also not very willing. So it's like basically the endeavor was started by a very famous personality in Pakistan. Her name is I remember partly her name is Mrs. Karamat, and she was actually Mrs. U Karamat, and she's actually the wife of the principal of famous institution in Pakistan, the Government College Lahore.
Okay.
And so this happened in the 1950s when she set up this in one room, actually.
Very nice.
This organization sprung from one room, and now it has a hospital, it has a school, it has a maternity area, and it's like it takes care of such people who are not able to take care of themselves.
That's very nice. Thank you so much for that. So, all right. How is your relationship with your children while we are talking about this?
Well, I just have one child. He is actually studying here in the United States. He's doing a PhD from a university here, and right now he is actually visiting us in Dallas.
Very nice.
He's with us, and I do believe that I have a very, very good relationship. Although I think that in his childhood I was not that attentive to his needs as much as I should have been, maybe in the first 4 or 5 years. It was only maybe when he was 5 or 6 or 7 years that I realized that I have been perhaps not giving him enough time. Because of the nature of my work, I was actually more committed to my work and giving him less time. But this is something which really actually bothered me in these recent years, and I have tried to make amends for what I've done, but I can say that ever since I realized, I did try my best to give him time, attention, and everything which a father can do for his child.
That's very nice, very nice. So he's able to share with you, he's open with you?
He does, and I think
communicates?
I think I think I am his biggest confidant.
That makes
actually you must have just seen him cross the screen.
Okay.
He's right there.
Maybe I will talk to him soon then. Maybe not now.
Okay.
That's nice.
He was actually staring at me that, why did you say that you didn't give me enough time? Because he always says that you did what you could.
Oh,
and I
nice.
said, no, I said I didn't do what I should.
Okay.
So, but Alhamdulillah, he is very well connected with me. We have a very good frequency, a very good connection.
Excellent.
He always confides with me and in me, and we do enjoy a lot of good moments every now and then.
So he has a good relation with his mother as well?
He has a good relationship with his mother as well, because being the only child, we do try to pamper him, although he's now a 27-year-old.
MashaAllah.
But ever since his birth, we have tried to pamper him as much as we could. And being the only child, you tend to give more attention. So, Alhamdulillah, we have had a very good relationship.
Good, very good, very good. What is the best way to build a character, just as a human being? Like, what are some do's and don'ts, basic do's and don'ts that you can quickly give us so that we can have this?
Well, I think that there are a couple of pointers, and of course, the onus of this lies on the parents themselves. If they have to groom good children, then they have to be good parents, and unless this happens, it's like a lost cause. But if we presuppose that we have a parent who are very attentive to this, then some of the other things that I would say that they need to inculcate in their children is one of them is that they must set themselves a mission in life. They must try to find the aptitude their child has, and this often I have seen in many countries that this often goes waste and unnoticed because no one gives this attention regarding the basic aptitude his or her child would have. So the first thing that I would advise all parents to do is to help their child find a purpose in life, and that purpose should be related to the talent that he or she might have. Every single person in this world has been blessed with some ability or the other by the Creator, and a parent and a teacher can make that child realize and understand and appreciate what good am I in certain affairs. And then if you fix a mission in life, a purpose in life, so that you can really do something and contribute to the society that you live in. The second pointer that I give in this regard is that parents must teach their children to live a life in line with their conscience. So their conscience is the greatest guide that they must have, and their conscience is the greatest guide that they should. It's like a light which shines in our inner soul, and if it is shining bright, you always get to know the right path simply by asking yourself. So you don't have to go to any person to ask what right and wrong are, because righteousness and wrong are innately revealed in our inner selves. So to lend an ear to the voice of our conscience is the second thing I would advise them. And then I would always tell them that they must respect and obey the laws of the country that they live in, because often it happens that you don't realize that you belong to a society, you belong to a community, and we must not live as if we are unbridled, we have no restraint, but we must follow the laws of the country and the society and the community that we live in, because this gives us discipline and also gives us a purpose in life. And lastly, we have to be true seekers of the truth. So if we have this objective in mind that we shall seek the truth, and wherever we find the truth, we shall accept it, adopt it, abide by it, and do our best to further it, then it's a job done. Because if a person is a true seeker of the truth, then he or she is going to really be someone who gives priority to what the truth is. And it doesn't matter where it leads us. It could lead us to any religion, maybe, or any sub-denomination. But as long as we are true and sincere in our quest, I do think that the Almighty will of course, be looking upon us with favor and affection and give this regard, because we see in divine scriptures and from the stories of the prophets that what is required from a person is his seeking of truth as much as he or she can.
Thank you. Wonderful. Can you talk about, in your experience that we were talking about parents, what are the gaps that you see today in parents in this area of parenting and their character and themselves as a human being?
Right.
Can you shed some light on that?
So there are a number of areas in which parents need to perhaps improve themselves. So this is a very specialized topic, but just to give a few pointers. The first of them is that parents must never compare their children with one another or with some other child who is perhaps better off or more intelligent or more quick, because more often than not, this actually has a very bad effect on the psyche of that child. So instead of motivating him or her, what they do is they taunt the child that you should compare yourself with your cousin or with your friend. Look at him or look at her, how
sometimes even the siblings. Sometimes they which is the worst thing to do.
The worst thing is that you compare with your siblings, and this has this. So you see what happens is, instead of realizing that every child has his own or her own pace. What I said that instead of concentrating on the fact that what is causing a slow learner to be a slow learner, what parents do is that they spend more time in that taunting comparison with their siblings or with their cousins. So what they should do is try to find out what makes a person what he is. So this is what we call in psychology studying the personality type of a child. So the PT, as it is called, the personality type varies from child to child. Some are slow, some are fast, some are intelligent, some are less intelligent, some are more creative, some are overt, some are introverts, some are extroverts. So it's a whole bunch of classification which psychologists have made. So if you find your child to be a slow learner or a person who's not performing well in his studies or her studies, so it needs to be seen, the reason, because you see, at times the teacher is not good. At times the subject is not being approached in the right way. At times the environment in which that child is studying is hostile. As I said, it's at times not. So So parents must first of all do this, that they must concentrate regarding the personality type of their child, and then adjust their behavior and their attitude, which should be in harmony with the personality type of that child. If the child is shy, you have to deal with that child in a separate way. If he is naughty, then you have to deal with her or him in a separate way. So there's this issue of personality type and going along with that. The second thing I would advise parents, especially, and this is very specially and with special stress, is that they must never quarrel amongst themselves in front of their children, because this plays a really damaging role on the psyche of the children. And instead of having full confidence in their parents, they tend to become, if they are already shy, they become even more shy. If they lose confidence in this institution of marriage, and it is really very bad, because it affects very badly their own upbringing and their own growth, and makes them depressive individuals. The third thing I would advise parents is that they must not impose themselves on their children, especially when they are grown-up children or they are growing up. What they should do is they should actually have a dialogue with them, discuss with them, suggest to them, present their own experiences. But at the end of the day, let the grown-up child, decide whatever he or she has to do.
Now, this is for which age group? Can you give us
For example, as soon as they end mature age, you see, when children are growing up, you can tell them a lot of things. You can even enforce them, and they'll not react when you enforce. The best age to gauge that is as soon as the child starts reacting to your enforced phenomena. That is the time to stop.
That is the time,
or at least being more careful. But as they grow up, you should give them more chance and let them make mistakes. It's not going to be the end of the day if they make mistakes. All of us had our own share of mistakes. So let's look back. Instead of being ambitious that they should get up, they should become perfect individuals immediately. This does not happen in God's planet. On God's planet, what does happen is that children, when they enter puberty or mature age, they make all sorts of mistakes, and this is a universal phenomenon. So let them do that. Give them this confidence that it's not the end of the world, and let them do what they like. Let them experiment. And if you have dealt with them in the right way, they'll come back to you. They'll come back to what righteousness is if you give them this freedom. So I would say the third thing is that you must not impose yourself. And that doesn't mean that you just let them go scot-free. Of course, you educate them, you tell them of your experience, but let the decision be made by them. The decision as important as the spouse they would like to choose, as important as the career they would like to choose, as important as trivial as the clothes maybe, or the room, or the fan, or the everything which is very small.
Food even sometimes.
Even food, everything. So let them choose that, because they are individuals, and this is a right which God has given them. And if we take away this right, I would say this would be a violation of human rights, which actually should not be done. And then another thing that I would suggest parents is that they should also try their best to become role models in whatever they have to make their children. So for example, if they are truthful, if they are just, if they are compassionate, if they are kind, this is something which will reflect on their children, and children immediately take notice of such traits. And the last thing I would suggest parents, in fact, this to me is a barometer of a good parent, or it's a litmus test whether you're a good parent or not, and that is that if a child commits a mistake, does something wrong, and he or she comes directly to you without going to anyone else or without hiding, and says, this is something I did today, Baba, or this is something bad I did today, Mama, it shows the confidence that you have given him or your child. He or she comes directly to you and says that I did the wrong thing. I realize I would like your help to come out of this. So this actually means that you are really good friend with your child. He did not hide the thing he did badly. He or she did not go to somewhere else. But he or she came directly to you to express whatever bad thing he or she did, so that as a parent, you become someone who is more of a savior to him, more of a heaven to him, more of a person who would love his mistakes also, and who would love to take care of his mistakes. I think if this happens with a parent, then he or she should consider himself to be a very successful parent.
That's very nice. Very thorough and very perfect answer, because I think these are the quick ways nowadays, because we have no time. So I think this would be a good way to at least begin our own evaluation with these 5 points that you have mentioned. Thank you so much. So I would like to, this is the right time to segue into interfaith. What is the value of interfaith in our life today? And because I also work in interfaith and I can see that you are part of it too. So how to bring up children or youth into the awareness of or the value of interfaith, whether you are in Pakistan, because we are more homogeneous society there, we are not so diverse as many other countries, and in some ways we are too, but so you would know more about it. Could you say something about that?
So I think the starting point for any interfaith endeavor or any interfaith exercise is that before being individuals who belong to a particular faith, all of us are human beings. So the first religion is humanity.
Yes.
The first bond is humanity. So this is something which should come to us so naturally. It's like belonging to the same fraternity. And all of us being human beings on this planet Earth, as I always say, we belong to a global family.
Yes.
We are part of this grand global family. And as individuals of this grand global family, we have to care for each other. We have to think about each other. We have to be good friends with each other. And later on come the views that we might have. For example, I might have a friend who could have any views, but as a human being, he is my or she is my friend simply because we share the same human values. We share the same human fraternity. So my first bond is being a human being, and therefore cementing that bond is something which I would say is a duty, because when God created all of us, He created us from a single pair, a man and a woman. Adam and Eve, we are the progeny of Adam and Eve. So being the progeny of Adam and Eve, what happens is that we should consider ourselves to be members of the same family. We are cousins, second cousins, maybe 50th cousins or 80th cousins in that big tree.
Big tree, yes.
But we are all related.
Yeah.
And since we are related, we have to feel for each other as a human being does for the other. We have to show compassion. We have to look after the people. We have to think that their grievances are our grievances. We have to adopt their grievances. We have to make themselves comfortable as much as we can. We have to bring happiness to them. And I always say that the biggest source of becoming happy is to make other people happy. Because what this does is that it spiritually elevates you. It gives you this feeling that you have made a person, even if a single person, happy in your whole life. It resonates back, and it really makes a very good effect on your own selves. So this is the starting point of any interfaith endeavor. That's the first point, I would say. And the second point is that we should proceed in a manner which I always call as educate and not dominate. So education, this means apprising each other, informing each other, becoming well known to what other people believe is the name of the game. So instead of imposing yourself, instead of perhaps trying to convert people or to influence them, this is not the right way. It's like sharing what you think is the right, what you think is right, and giving reasoning and argument in favor of it, and then just withdrawing. Let the other person reflect. Let the other person have his own or her own share of deliberation on what you just said, as dear to us as the other person holds his or her own beliefs dear to him or herself. So we have to realize that each person has this proclivity, and as a result, the only line of communication between myself and any other person is that reasoning that I might have. And I say that I like this, or I prefer that I have found something good, and I'd like you also to please to share with me this good. Then I must convey why that thing is better or good or whatever worth it has on the basis of some reasoning. And that is all. And it doesn't matter if the other person doesn't switch or doesn't change, because I have done my job. When I find something good, when I find something which is going to be good for me, the thing that really motivates me is that, okay, let me share this with others, because if it is good for me, it could be good for other people. So that's all that I need to do. And then back away after that, because every person should have this breathing space, and this should go on all along our lives. The third point that I'd like to make here is that we must encourage each other to read scriptures of other religions. And this should happen at a very early age. Like, for example, as Muslims, when we study the Quran, we introduce it as the book of Muslims. I think this is a wrong perception. Right. This is one of the books of the Muslims. This is the final book of the Muslims. All divine books are books which we revere and honor, and we must study. So when my child was growing up and he was about 12 years old, 11 years old, I bought him a children's Bible. And I said, you must study this all along as you study the Qur'an, because both books are the books which are divine. So the third step of interfaith dialogue is that studying the scriptures of each other. And if it takes place at a later age, okay, that is fine. But better still, if it takes place at a younger age, in which as parents, we introduce these scriptures to our children so that they know how God has been sending various prophets and how he has been guiding mankind and how we can benefit from the collective heritage and from this collective wisdom which is being shared with us. And then, of course, there are some specifics which I can talk about later. But basically, these are the three steps that I always recommend, in my humble view.